Hey, this is Paul Carter here. I'm with Jordan and Josh, right?
Correct.
Sweet. So, our essential question is: as an advanced educational professional, how would you apply data and data analysis to ensure your continuous improvement plan is focused on closing gaps? Well, some background information about this essential question. To me, from what I took it from that article by Diane Schaffhauser, what I took from her is that to close that gap, we need to identify each little thing instead of focusing on the whole kid. I know that sounds terrible, but focus on the each and every student learning outcome or standard, because then you can find out exactly the things that they are falling behind in to close that gap. And we in our schools we got to create that culture of learning and assessment. And to me, like my personal experience of that and what I've done so far is we've created individual plans of study at my school to where we're kind of tracking kids a little bit, and then kids are kind of actually checking their own assessment, checking their own data, so that individual plan, and they can do it based off these student learning targets that we are actually creating right now in our PLC time. It's a little bit different than standards-based grading, but it's very similar to where we take those standards and then break them down even further, so kids can actually find out exactly where they're lacking. Because in the article it talks about kids can find out, hey, I'm really good at one standard, I was lacking on two, and so then the teacher can then focus individually with each kid on the standards. And to me, that is going to close that gap for each and every kid. So the desired outcome on this would be obviously every kid meeting their full potential and hitting all the standards that they need, but you can actually track it. So if a kid is mastering one standard, they've closed the gap on that one, but then they can further get into each and every standard that they're lacking in, or those other things that they need to work on, and then they can be studied. That data can be studied during that PLC process of the professional learning communities at our school.
So, okay, my first clarifying question. What grades is this?
I teach sixth grade,
Okay.
so yeah, I'm at a middle school.
How often do your PLCs meet?
We this year is the very first time that we have been able to, our district set aside every Wednesday morning. We have late start from 8:05 to 9:05, so they give us an hour each and every week. And we meet as a department, because the article also talks about having to focus in as a department and whatever that word is. And so social studies, which is what I teach, we all meet together to kind of track kids that way.
Do the kids take ownership at all in this?
Yes, me as a sixth grade teacher, it is, I'm just getting them started through that process, and our goal is by eighth grade, they're owning it, so that when they get into high school, they use a program called Zello. They can actually track their own progress and track their student learning targets and their standards and how they are meeting it through those individual plans of study.
Okay. Okay.
Do you use any screening tests or some sort of assessments to gauge knowledge base?
Well, for social studies in Kansas, sometimes we have them. It just depends on the state, but we do have map testing for reading and our state reading ones, and I use those a lot just because reading and social studies are so similar. I use those to help, and we can track kids, and then we at our fall map assessment and state assessments, we then set SMART goals with the kids through that individual plans of study, so that they can see how far they've come when they take it again in the spring.
Do they take benchmark tests?
Not necessarily. Social studies, it's its own thing, really, to me. I like our quizzes and our tests, and even in my class, we set them up to where it actually says exactly each standard each question is asking, so that then we can collect and create data through our Skyward grade book, and then we can find out what standards each kid is lacking in.
Right.
That's 2 minutes. So, person A tells partners what kind of help he or she wants. Well, I am not the most data savvy. As a social studies teacher, we actually don't look at it that often. I've actually this year with this course, I've had to go to my administration. I've had to ask them, hey, can you actually give me access to these, to the reading assessment, especially from the state and through MAP, because I didn't have it. And so to me, that's a huge disservice. I sat down with them and talked about it. So my question is, or the kind of help I would be is like, I don't, what grades or what contents do you guys teach?
I'm science. I'm sorry. I'm science.
Okay, science and.
So, I don't even know what you call me. Like I'm at the Roy J. Wasson Academic Campus,
Mm-hmm.
the largest school district in Colorado Springs. All the alternative kids are here.
Okay.
There are 8 different programs. Essentially, at the bottom line is, I'm kind of the attendance dean is what I am. So I'm in charge of enforcing compulsory attendance. I take kids to truancy court.
Okay. Because I know I've talked to some science teachers. They have plenty of standards that they can actually use in a line. Social studies technically only has 5 standards. So it's really hard to create some of these. So that's the kind of help I guess I would ask. Like, what are your suggestions for how I can actually create and track some of this data that I need to help close these gaps with my kids? I think it's step 5 now.
Yeah. Go ahead, George.
Well, it's kind of hard when you're teaching those areas that are outside of the state assessment areas. So outside of math and language arts, basically, your data pool is just a lot smaller. And so you got to use those other data sources, like those map tests from the reading, and things like that, as well as get that understanding of those. Because I know, at least at my school, we don't. If you're outside of those areas, you don't really look at those or kind of really know what those mean. I know we used to do those map tests. What all those numbers, it's not on a particular scale. Yeah. So what those actually mean.
I'm not saying I'm any expert. I guess I've kind of come up with 4 possible, suggestions. Offer professional development sessions to help teachers interpret the data and understand it, so they can teach it better. Have teachers look at demographic data, give more planning time for teachers, and have leadership be involved with the use of data in the classroom. Take it or leave it.
Say, I find like this past summer, they sent me to actually I don't know if you've heard of Learning Tree, but they've done, it's just this whole thing about the PLC process. And I actually went to you could go to different classes, and I went to a bunch about data just because I knew I didn't understand it, and I knew this course was coming up. And what you said about using demographic data, I find myself not even ever looking or thinking about that. And I think that's a lot of the part that I, as a teacher, and even my school, being in a small town, Kansas, East Kansas, we are predominantly white, but I still think there's a lot of demographic that we can look at and use. You also talked about professional development, and I feel like that's actually is a little bit lacking in my district, pretty bad when it comes to data. Just because like I'm at a loss and I've asked, and they all they do is they give me the spreadsheets that map or state comes up with, and like, here you go. And there's no professional development that comes for that or continues. So what I might do next is I need to like advocate, I think, a little bit more for myself. Like I'm doing some research and stuff my own, especially with this course. It's got me thinking about it. But advocate and ask and try to get the data, especially from the language arts teachers and from our instructional coach, using her to kind of help me through this process, just because I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball a little bit, and I want to be able to help my students close these gaps. So as a future administrator, I'm kind of learning, I think right now, maybe not necessarily what not to do, but what to offer my teachers because of what they might be lacking. So jumping back to that essential question, kind of to wrap up, it says, like, as an advanced educational professional, how would you apply data and data analysis to ensure continuous improvement in the plan focused on closing gaps? Well, I would use that PLC process a lot to help identify these learning targets and these standards so that we can then check in each and every one, just like that article by Schaffhauser said. And then I would, like you said, Josh, I would offer that professional development to my teachers instead of just throwing that data at them. I don't want them to, which I feel like happens to teachers a lot. Data just thrown at them and then they don't know what to do with it. So I would definitely want to offer that professional development so that they knew how to use it, and so that we can actually then help the kids with those individual plans of study and help them, each and every individual kid, meet the needs and those targets or those standards that they're not meeting.
For sure.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
It's good. It's good.
Okay, sounds good.